Welcome back, guys, to Winter Wolf's Den. King Z and your boy Winter Wolf coming at you with something we've been looking forward to all week to talking about this. We're happy to say that we're up on time, we're caught up, we're ready to give you guys our analysis on Andor episode 6. Dude, I dug it. I don't want to give too much away at the front. I'm guessing you dug it too because we just talked briefly about it backstage. Did you dig it? Did you not dig it? Is this what we were waiting for out of an episode 6?
I thought this was masterfully done. A big round of applause to Susanna White, the whole team.
Directing.
Dan Gilroy for a great script written. The editor for the way he cut it. And the DP, his name is Frank Lame, who did that one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Dude,
great
definitely.
job all around.
Dude, definitely, dude. Dude, it's very rarely I'm watching episodic television where I actually feel like I'm on edge and I'm waiting for the bad thing to happen. And we know, because we know in things that are in genre, like especially with things like that are heists and things like that, something always goes wrong. The other shoe always drops. It's unavoidable in the genre. And I was like, almost like as close to white knuckling my armrest as I could get. I was there. And I was there with this one. I think they nailed it.
And it was a totally different heist than what I was expecting. I was thinking secret squirrel stuff's coming in, sneaking in, stealing the money, and then disappearing.
Oh, yeah.
No, that was not the case.
No. And you know, I thought of what you were saying last week too, when you had to point out to me that you saw the Republic, the credit chips that were kind of behind the lock vault, behind the bars and whatnot. So I kind of had I was thinking that too when they actually got in, and I was like, oh. It's not just a safe that has a shelf on it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a whole hangar bay.
Dude, it was exactly like an entire massive hangar bay storage. It was basically Fort Knox of that base.
Yeah.
Of that Imperial stronghold. So that was pretty nasty.
Now they did
We'll get into
that.
the specifics of that.
He told him it was the payroll for a whole sector.
Oh, that's what he said. I think he said quarterly payroll for a sector.
Quarterly payroll for a whole
Quarterly
sector.
payroll. Yeah, dude. Big bucks without a doubt. So yeah, I think we're going to have fun talking about this one. I'm looking forward to it, but let's get these guys up to speed for folks that are going to check in and catch the vid. And guys, we appreciate it. We're digging doing these. Appreciate everybody stopping by. A couple of new subs over the last week have been great. Comments have been great on some of the other videos, and I appreciate all of that. So let's get into this with no further ado.
If you guys are digging the content, give us the love back, and we'll give you it right back at you.
To appreciate it. Everything gets reinvested back into the channel at all times in terms of any kind of support you're lending, so we do appreciate that. All right, episode 6, titled The Eye, and as pointed out by my buddy King Z here, directed by Susanna White, excellent job, written by Dan Gilroy, excellent job. Here's the synopsis. Aided by, I think it's Lieutenant Gorn, the rebels successfully infiltrate the garrison by posing as an escort squad for Commander, was it Behaz, I believe? And that's Gorn's immediate superior. J-Hold, that's right. It was something funky. And basically the plan was they take Behaz's family hostage and basically force him to kind of go along with their plan. They need a handprint scan to open the vault, so they have to take him. Well, they suggest they could just take his hand, but they basically take him alive.
Great line.
We get a quick run through of all those little setups, and then they get right into the business where the team infiltrates the base. They get down into the payroll storage area, the high security section. I think you predicted this, as a matter of fact, so much credit to you. They basically commandeered the skeleton crew who was on duty and playing cards. I think they were playing Savick, and basically had those poor bums offload the credits, load up the transport ship so they could not have to do all the heavy lifting themselves. Bad things happen to the team. Some stuff goes down. They make their escape. More bad stuff goes down. Some shocking shit goes down off-world, and I know I'm being vague, but it's intentional because King Z and I are going to run through it on our usual scene-by-scene basis. But there were a few incidents that came up in this episode, and I won't quite put them on a par with Game of Thrones for how they executed that shock value. I didn't think it hit that hard because I think we kind of knew something like this had to happen. So it wasn't complete, and it wasn't completely out of the blue, and it made logical story sense. So it's not like it was a nothing you couldn't have seen coming if you were actually paying attention to the kind of the flow of the narrative as it was going.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me pull up the payroll. See, I'm still thinking in heist terms. Let me pull up the timeline. So we're gonna watch this in the background on my end, so I can guide us through like we usually do. We open up. It's probably daybreak or just before daybreak. The team they're assembled near the Imperial facility. We see Nemec, who comes over to sit with Clem. He's doing the pre-fight jitters, says I couldn't sleep and I'm worried I got to be at my best. They have their little powwow to chit-chat.
Yep.
And I think that the big takeaway here from this one is we see Nemec's not starting to break, but he's definitely the young guy in the group. He's nervous. He says he writes when he's nervous, and the take out of that is he mentions that, guns are weapons, but the people pulling the trigger are equally as important, and we need to be ruthless in using them, in so many words, because the Empire doesn't play by the rules. And then Andor says something telling, right? Where he basically puts the kid on notice that the Empire doesn't give a shit about you. They don't have any motivation to play by the rules that you think you're breaking right now in birthing your insurgency. So you've got a nice deep look at these kind of character motivations. What do you think of this right here? Because I like the Nemec character. I really do.
Yeah,
I think
Nemec
he's one of my
is
favorites so far.
The young idealist who wants to. He's all about what the rebellion would stand for.
He's the cause. He's the cause guy.
He's all about the cause. And Andor is pretty much saying, but these guys, they don't care about you. The Empire doesn't care about you. Sometimes you have to
don't
get
even
it for
register.
yourself.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
and it's important you phrased it like that too. Like that you got to be in it for yourself, because as we see at the end, that's some setup there. I just wanted to mention real quick, because after I went back and watched it again today, I kind of saw where the commenters were coming from. Does this dude not look like the character Mouse from the Matrix movie? Like the youngest kid that was on that crew, the one that when they bricked over the walls in the building, when the agents caught up with him, takes up the two automatics in his hand and goes out in the blaze of glory. The tech nerd that programmed the woman in the red dress. This dude looks almost just like him, and he's exactly the same character. Fundamentally he's the same guy.
Yeah, he really is. I really liked the Nemec character. I thought he could actually go further than what they did with him with the cause. Like he could have been a really good recruiter and stuff like that. His technical prowess as well. Like his old
because he was their navigation guy. Yeah, that's right. He was the gadget guy.
He was the gadget guy because he had the old radios that we saw soon after this scene. He had the old school navigation, and he was a pen and paper guy, not writing down on a data pad.
Just to touch on exactly what you just said too, remember the thing that kind of endeared me to him on the last episode was he was the one that mentioned we've gotten comfortable under like modern, not even necessarily imperial rule. We've just been like modernity has made us comfortable. We've got a growing list of things we've forgotten. So I appreciate characters that have like a respect for the old ways of doing things. You balance those with modern technology, of course, but you can become over dependent on progressive ideas and technology and kind of lose sight of how you got where you are.
Yeah, use it to make life better, not dependent.
Right. Yep.
And,
true that.
I mean, it's a straight call of what our society is today.
Oh, dude, dead on balls accurate. One of the things I liked most about this scene here was exactly how it ended up, and you probably picked up on the same little bit of foreshadowing I did. Is that the last dialogue they exchange here is Andor basically telling him, don't be nervous, you'll sleep when this is done.
Yeah.
On a second view, I'm like, oh, ouch. Okay, all right, well, kind of spot on there, but that was solid work there. So moving right along, we meet. What was the Imperial guy's name again? Kingsley. It was Jade-Hold
B Hayes, Beehaz.
All right, I'm going with this first name on this one. So this is Imperial Jade-Hold, just so we can keep this straight in my head. All right.
He's Commandant.
That's right. He's ranking. He's up there. So we meet a new Imperial character and his family, and this is important because this has plot implications later. And he's getting all dressed up in the regalia. He's trying to button a sash. They make it a point to show you that he's gotten a little too big for his britches. It doesn't cinch. I think there was a message there.
You missed the initial conversation with him and the engineer, Colonel.
Did I miss?
Petzar. Yeah, that came in right after.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You are 100% right, dude. Bring me back and run through that.
So
that's important because they're talking about the Aldanis in there.
They're talking about the people that they displaced and how they gave them like cheap beer and cheap stuff, and
they've effectively whittled down any future resistance to the Imperial plan on Aldhani.
Appease them. That's the word I was looking for.
Yep.
Appease them.
By overloading with options.
Yep. And then only the few faithful would actually come back to this. And like it went from a few 100,000 to like a few hundred now that we're coming to CDI, to their holy valley.
I think they said that at their peak at that holy site for this particular holiday, they had 15,000. Last year, I think they said last year we had 500. What was our last count? Our head count last night? And he goes, about 60.
Yeah, that made the.
It's like, okay, so it looks like the method worked.
Yeah, because they moved them to a whole other side of the continent from understanding what they told them before, and there's only a few stragglers and holdouts left.
That's what they said. So they're expecting almost zilch in the way of any presence at this at the festivities that are going to go on.
And then they were talking about.
Thanks for bringing that back up.
Yeah, and then they were talking about building the air base and that there will be no resistance, and they probably won't be
his
any
words
left
are
afterwards.
Yeah, and then he brings up an interesting point when they get to talking about that, and he goes, there'll be plenty of arms and legs back up here when you need them to build everything you plan on building, which is a fairly ominous statement. Yeah. Like they're basically saying, we're bringing you back here to do the work.
Yep.
And we're probably not paying, so
it's probably going to be at gunpoint, just like they did the Wookiees to build the Death Star.
Yep. It's going to be suggested.
Yeah.
Definitely do it. Big ups for reminding me that scene happened, because it's tough to track it on the timeline here.
Yeah.
So when we get...
It was just a straight setup for the Imperial mindset once again.
Yep. And again, it's frighteningly accurate, and I think it's a good example of how you bring real life politics into a show without like dead naming a specific political faction one way or the other. Basically, no, this is how colonizing happened, in the earlier part of human history, where people in power with guns, germs, and steel would have run train on anybody not able to resist guns, germs, and steel.
And
that's how it happens.
And that's how
across the world.
Yep. It's
across cultures,
been happening
every continent.
For years. I mean, look at what's happening in Ukraine right now. Russia's doing the exact same thing. Big guns, big weapons, trying to take land that they believe is theirs.
Yep. And then, like I said, it's not like we're going to overlook, these kind of things happening in other parts of the world that wouldn't be stereotypically defined as the West. South America has a history of this. China has a history of this. Southeast
Africa
Asia
still has a history of this.
Africa has a massive history of it right now. Certain political organizations, things like that. But we digress. We're not going to waste our episode sidebar on that
for another time.
And I think we'll probably get way more scrutiny on that one if we. So we had ourselves a little bit of technical difficulty there on the King Z side, which we apologize for.
I need a better camera.
I'll see if we can find it in the budget for you. I got a figure on the timeline. We were just talking about that last scene with J Hall there, the Imperial, where he's talking with his superior about what's going on with the celebration. Dude, I think I was about to skip a massive part of the episode where he's getting ready for the formalities with his wife and everything else. There's a couple of more things in between. So I'm just reversing the timeline.
One thing I want to point out about Colonel Pegar, who he was talking to.
Petigar, yep.
Mm-hmm. Petigar.
Yep.
He was the guy who designed the new Coruscant after the Empire took over. He's like the
cool.
Army Corps of Engineers for the Empire.
Nifty. Always good to know some of the extra little lore in the background. That's one of the things I appreciate about Star Wars, that you have those kind of things that are built into just about every good story that gets told. And that's why certain shows that'll remain nameless, because I've shit on them enough, they lack a lot of that, because I think a lot of these kind of things they try to wing without drawing from source where they could.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just trying to cash in based on nostalgia and the cash in on the fans.
Yeah, definitely. Let me pull us up here. So we were the last thing we discussed before the camera shot down was that the Imperials have basically installed a mindset into the Aldanis, and they've managed to whittle them down through attrition over time not unpleasant attrition necessarily. They've given them, they gave them the old Roman wine and circuses, or bread and circuses, I mean.
Yeah.
And they basically distracted them along the way from wanting to get back up to like the high elevation point where they can view the eye. Mm-hmm. If you guys remember from last episode, the eye is basically a celestial event that's kind of attached to the Aldani religion. Like we're led to think it's some kind of visual optical thing that's going to have, a massive presence that the Rebel team is going to use to kind of cover their escape after the heist goes off. So they basically, the Imperials have set up the Aldanis that remained in the area for not necessarily having to see it from the mountaintop, but they're now going to be seeing it from the valley, or the majority of them will be seeing it from the valley.
Yep.
And only the dedicated will be getting all the way up to the top. So when next we go, we get a quick I'm picking it up from here, even if the timeline's a little broken, dude. So just bear with me on this one, guys.
Okay.
So we see Tamarin's half of Andor's team. Because remember, it's the 4 guys are on kind of like the A team, and Vel and Cinta went off on their own secondary objective on like the B team. And it's a pretty interesting division of labor. Right. I mean, that they're hitting multiple objectives simultaneously. That way one thing can work.
That and females weren't allowed to be troopers.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. At this point, they in fact were not. Where else are we here? So we get up on that scene where Nemec is talking to Tamarin about the radio unit that they're going to use for comms and how it's more reliable because it's older, it's better constructed, it's not as temperamental or sensitive.
Mm-hmm. It's
Old that
Republic
group is in
tech.
Yep, Old Republic tech indeed. And so their half of the team is basically in touch with Vel's team. They're kind of communicating back and forth. They're trying to get things rolling. It's kind of normal fare, I would say. It's nothing too particularly breakdownable, like we were talking about pre-show in the setup here. A couple little character moments, nothing crazy specific I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there was anything big revealing in that. Just you saw where they went after they departed in episode 5.
You're talking about Vel and Cinta.
Yeah, where they actually went.
Yep.
And then the call signs. The only thing to take away from the call signs is that she was calling the male team Echo, and they were Valley. And if you want to link it to Star Wars lore, remember the base on Hoth was Echo Base.
Hells yeah. Dude, it's in my gamer tag still, for Christ's sake. Yeah, so they're setting up. They definitely have the ladies do. They have a specific objective that they're going to hit on, and we're going to get into that in a couple minutes here, because I think we're going to move quickly through it here. We get more visuals with there's some somber music playing with like the parade of the Aldanis that are kind of marching on the holy site that we saw Gorn ordered, cleaned up from the end of the last episode.
Yeah,
there.
they're also called to have a peaceful, like they were telling the troopers, like they're there to make sure there's no uprising, but that this is a peaceful reception of the Aldanis.
Yep. And they reiterated a couple of points in this entire thing where it's like, they won't bother you if you don't bother them. And it's kind of like it's being said to both sides.
Yeah.
Is because I think Gorn actually says that to them, to the Aldanis, when they're rolling up at one point. So we got Tamarin has basically their team at attention. At one point, he's kind of laying over the same instructions. He's reminding them, you got to look like soldiers. We belong here. We have to act a part. We're here to do the job. This is how it's going to work.
Yeah, and then to talk about their covers, like if they're from there, we're from here. If we're from here, we're from there.
That's if they were questioned by other Imperials.
Yeah, other troopers that are out there securing the area.
And it looked like for a second that was actually going to be a thing as it played out, because when their team passes by another squad of assembled Imperials, I thought one of them gave them a dirty look a little bit. I was like, oh, there it is. That guy smells a rat 100%. But that didn't actually play out. It ended up being the radio operator. Ended up being the radio operator that sorted out the jankiness of what was going on. But we'll get into that obviously, because that was some good stuff. We're back with Vel and Cinta. They're still preparing a little bit of their own gear. They have a different path of egress into where they're trying to go. They're in a little cave spot, kind of divvying up the gear. They get passed by an Imperial patrol, and for a second there, you're like, if you've been watching it, if you're into the show the entire time, you feel some legitimate tension here. Like, there's 4 dudes on patrol, and they're kind of jabbing like soldiers get on to jabbering. But it's like, they're like almost, they're within a stone's throw easily.
Yeah.
Of the hiding point that the ladies are in.
The bathroom like right next to them.
He did. I think he literally like stopped and took a piss.
Yeah.
Like on the stone formation they were hiding inside of.
Yeah.
It's like they cut it close for sure. I'm just gonna try and skip ahead so we don't run too long here. Tamarin orders his team onto the march after the last minute instructions. They basically bring up the rear of the column of Aldanis that are coming to see the Eye event. And that cuts us into, wow, dude, I was about to skip a whole lot of shit. Nice catch. This skips us right to the part where Imperial Dickweed J-Hold is trying to cinch the sash and the belt. And it's obviously a few sizes too short.
Yep. Like,
obviously a few sizes.
He's become lazy. He's become complacent. He's been at this station for, 7 years, just like the lieutenant.
Yeah.
And that's what he was telling his wife. It's like, that's why I'm sucking up to this guy, because if you want off this planet, this is the guy who can make it happen.
Yeah. No, I was like, dude, it looks like they probably issued this sash when he was like a size 32, but my man's easily a 46 now.
Yeah.
Like, easily. So it's kind of funny. So the wife, and now I got to throw props out to an unsung hero this episode. The wife was great. That's this actress gets all bleary later when the character is in danger. She sold it.
Yeah.
Dude, props to you, and I wish I had her name to name her specifically, and she's probably so far down the castle, so I'm doubting you have it. But when they have them later, I was like, oh, dude, she is selling this. Like, she was selling this on like a level that like the A cast in that situation probably like could have sold it. I was digging her vibe. I thought she was pretty good. So they basically set up a plot point that I don't think they realized all the way through. That's between J-Hold and the son. Like, she's getting they have a 12-year-old, give or take, it looks like.
Yeah.
Is a preteen. She's helping the kid get ready for the Imperial function that you mentioned. They're basically going to dinner, or they're going to like the procession for the Eye.
Yeah.
In like a formal event, and he wants the family on best behavior so they can get out of like the shithole assignment that they have. Because J-Hold is perpetually referencing like the smell and not wanting to be here, and I put in my time and I want out and everything else. But he grumbles under his breath after the kid doesn't want to go to the event. The kid says, "Mom, I don't feel good." She feels the forehead. Dude, Father of the Year. I wouldn't hold my breath, bro.
No.
Like, he's like, there's always something wrong with him, or he's always sick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so does this come up later? And I was kind of bummed that it doesn't really. Like, the kid isn't the one that ends up screwing up anybody's plans or helping the rebels succeed or anything like that. Like, it's just kind of like a throwaway line to show him that he's a piece of shit.
Yep,
pretty much.
It was all character building.
Character
for
development.
him, showing that you're going to have no remorse for whatever happens to this guy.
Yeah, the wife here, I was mentioning that she sells a moment later where they're in danger because of the rebels actually taking them captive, which is not a spoiler for the episode at all, because it's obvious that it's going to go down that way. When she's talking to the husband, when she's talking to J-Hold, she looks like she's been on the receiving end of some domestic violence, in my opinion. Like, he throws her this look, and she like. But she's very light complected, very blue eyes, very big blue eyes. So when she's like looking down, being afraid, dude, it's almost anime size with the expression that you get. You know what I mean? So she's selling her. She earned every dime of her paycheck. There's no way she didn't. I'm her biggest fan. Now, if I could get a T-shirt with her name on it, like I'd rep the T-shirt. So we're moving on here. The kid doesn't want to go to dinner. We mentioned that. The Aldanis are reaching the mountaintop. They're kind of leading the way. Dude, the Aldani leader's a bad mother. I'll give you that, too. This old dude has zero fucks to give about the Imperials that are in his valley.
Yeah, he's just lucky.
Zilch. Dude, he's Walter White looking. Like, he is a cranky, crotchety looking dude. That's like, all right, fuck all of you. He don't care. Gorn's up here trying to keep the peace, which is nice. I believe he's speaking in Aldani to the elder, trying to do the respectful thing, which makes sense because we know that he was in love with one of them. Yeah. And whether or not he has a direct connection to this particular tribe or this particular older man that's like leading the procession, irrelevant. Like, he's he doesn't like what's happening to these people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it comes through as he's being pretty much the only respectful Imperial within like 1,000 miles of what's going on.
Yeah.
That's funny that they when they have their exchange, he basically offers the older guy like a general greeting, salutation, blessing, and the old guy's exact response to him is, "May the eyes stay open long enough to find some good within you."
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's a fairly significant burn. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that's a pretty righteous burn. And then I think it's later on that I think J-Hold asks him what he said.
Yeah.
It's at a different junction after another burn, and he's like, "Oh, he just said, like all the best. Like I hope it all works out." And it's obviously not what he said.
And you definitely see
it was
the
kind of
Adani's
funny.
leader, just his reaction, like, "That's not what I said." Showing
He's
that
like,
he
"No, I speak enough
understands English.
He's like, "I speak enough common English to know."
Yeah,
It was pretty
common,
funny
yeah.
when that happened.
It's referred to common in Star Wars.
And I wasn't sure if it was common in D&D and Star Wars. I'm pretty sure it's common in like everything that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So we get up to the part where, Gorn's ordering them inside. His team, of rebels with Andor and Tamara, Nemec and Skeen, they're bringing up the rear still. They're a short walk away from the base, or as far up to the shrine that's at the base's gate. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Big tongue tie.
And that's where the bit where they were practicing where they were from comes into play. He's like, "Are these the guards from such and such?" He's like, "Yes, they are." And they just kind of just stood there. So they didn't actually have to say it themselves, but it did come.
But they had to be prepared for it.
Yep.
Right. 100%. So we get a quick glimpse. It's really quick. We don't see what they're doing with it yet, but Cinta and Vel are putting on specialized equipment. Looks like a wetsuit. Turns out to be a wetsuit. They're going to go the amphibious entry route to the dam.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. It's kind of cool. And I'll say this, dude, I don't remember. Dude, did you watch Kenobi? I don't remember if you did.
No, I did not.
You didn't watch any? Okay. So there's a scene in one of Kenobi's episodes where something similar happens, and he basically has to plan like an amphibious entry to like one of the Sith fortresses because it's out in the middle of like an ocean or some bullshit, and it's like, the episode's so poorly written. Like they specified that the Imperial base doesn't have shields because they don't think anybody would come out here. Like, okay, like easy setup for what comes next. But knowing that, they still send Kenobi in underwater anyway. And it basically looks like if we were to like cut cam now and like if you had an old PlayStation 2 laying around, like it looks like a mission from like Metal Gear circa like 1999 on PlayStation 2, or like Kenobi using like one of the self-propelled, jet propulsion things underwater to like help him swim quicker. And it looks like dog shit. I just wanted to point that out because when they get to that scene in this episode, they do some underwater stuff, and I thought on a cinematography level, I thought it looked pretty good for underwater. Like I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's shot from, I think it was shot from the bottom up. So you get I think the light level was above them instead of below, which was kind of cool. But back on track to the episode. Sorry, that might have been the sidebar. Sorry about that.
A lot of money to rent the underwater cameras to get the high res and everything like that.
Oh hell yeah!
And you also have to have.
You can't just put your phone underwater,
Yeah, you have to have a camera operator who actually is scuba certified by union rules before you can even use equipment like that for a shot like that.
Yep, true that. So the wrap up on that scene is the Aldanis basically wind up at the shrine. They're starting to kind of file in and fill in around it there. We get another check-in scene
too. Like you start seeing.
I'm glad you said that. I was just gonna say that it flicks back over to Vel and Cinta. They've got the scuba gear on. They're ready to go in, and you see that first kind of shoot overhead. I'm gonna save my opinion on the eye for when we get to that actual scene.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk too much about the eye yet. So don't mention anything else about it.
No, I was just talking about
yet.
This is where the event is actually starting.
Oh, yeah,
you start seeing the initial things flying through the atmosphere.
Yep. All right, so they're gearing up here. I don't want to skip too far ahead. We get just a couple of shots of the Imperials and the Andor team also looking at the same. It looks basically, guys, it looks like a shooting star. That's like a very low atmospheric level, which is how they're going to use this to make their escape. We jump right back over to Gorn. He's giving last minute instructions to his teams about who's going to be where. He divides up and leaves 3 of his 4 units like on the ground at the shrine, and of course Squad B or whatever they're on. They're coming with, and they're doing escort duties for the Commandant when he comes in, which basically sets up the entirety of the end of the episode. This is the last point where basically Gorn is saying, don't bother them, they won't bother you. Eyes open, mouth shut, yada yada. Very looking very, astute-looking Imperial officer. Just, he belongs here. He's giving the fucking orders. You're all damn well going to do what I say. It's just going to run by the book because this is my show.
Yeah, and then that's when they do the exchange, right? The fur exchange.
Oh, dude, did I timeline jump that also?
Yeah, the Commandant comes in. It was after the words where Gorn lies about what he said.
Son of a bitch, dude. My timelining's off on this one. We can talk about that scene for a minute, too.
Yeah, he gives him the gift, and then he gives him a gift
Tell everybody what the gift is. Bring them up to speed. So what actually happened?
It was... I don't know what he gave back, what type of fur it was, but it was an exchange of fur, like from my animals
They
to
called
your
it goat.
Animals. They
just called it goat.
Okay.
Yep,
I missed that part.
Yep.
And then as they start walking away, he looks around and he's like, and then he takes over the fire and just throws it in the fire. Like, we're not as peaceful as y'all think we are.
Dude, tell me this old dude isn't about to Braveheart some shit on this planet. Like, it's probably going to happen at some point in this show's future.
And then based on the editing of the upcoming scenes, I thought they would have a bigger role in what was about to happen, too.
Oh, dude, most definitely. And you know what? I'm almost pleasantly surprised that it didn't become like some massive insurrection event at the gates that the rebels used to maneuver, their exfil strategies. I'm actually, kudos to the writers for not. I think that was an easy way to go.
Yep.
So I'm congratulating them for not going.
They built tension that they could use as payoff later, as well. So you have something that you have built now that you can use later. I think we will be back on this planet one more time before the series wraps in season 2.
Well, the Imperial base isn't going anywhere. They're gonna make whatever they're gonna make. It's a high secure. It'll be a higher security situation to get into. So let's see what's coming up next here. All right, that was where we ended up before I screwed the timeline up there. As Gorn was given the final orders.
Yep.
He's
and
walking
more
away
from the base. He's like, go down to the valley, enjoy the eye.
And he does that in a couple of different junctions too. Like, he even orders off like the last sentry that's basically wasn't on his payroll with like the rebellion. Go down there and enjoy it with your men.
Yeah.
Right after that, we get the underwater shot of Cinta and Vel going amphibious to access the dam and get in on the lower level. Yep. And what's really cool about the shot, dude, is they got a shot where the camera's at the very bottom. They're swimming over it. We get water and sunlight, and then we get another shot of the eye coming on top of over the whole thing. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. That's nothing to go like complete nerdgasm over, but I'm like, it's an interesting visual. I feel like all of these shows are really short on interesting visuals, so I'm going to point it out and give you guys a thumbs up when you get it right, which is what we've always said we'd do.
Yep. And
when we see something cool, we're going to give you the props for it.
Another big shout out to Frank Lamb for setting that all up and making sure that it captured what the director's vision was. And once again,
it
Susan White, you're nailing it.
Dude, for real. Dude, it reminded me, honestly, of like a panel out of like a comic book, like the way it was layered.
Yeah.
It had different it had colors of the water, colors of their scuba light, sunlight and sky, and then like I think the eye, the flicker of the eye in this one I think came across as green because they were underwater. I don't think it was pink in that one. I have to roll it back, but it was a different green, and it was a striking contrast to what the darkness of the water below. So it was cool.
They probably had some underwater lights going as well, just so that the camera could capture enough information for the colorist to make it look like the way it did.
Yep. Dude, digging it. So the ladies are on their way in from the underwater access point to the dam. When we pan back up, Gorn has kind of his last repartee as, a guy not on the outside, where J-Hold is like, we're finally going to be all past we're using goat skins as like a mechanism to like lease out our spot here, and they think it's okay. And he's just such a condescending Imperial douche nozzle. This is a point where he goes, we'll finally get out of here, and hopefully the table we're at for dinner is somewhere above the stench, he says. And what's funny here, and I have it actually where I froze it on the timeline for the screen cap here, is because I always have the closed captions on. Some of the accents kind of fuck with me now. I'm getting old. When he says above the stench, the caption reads Pedagar grimaces, right? And it's interesting that he's the one that grimaces at that remark because of the events that come down in a little bit.
Yeah.
When the heist actually goes off, and we'll talk about that. But I thought this was an interesting beat right here, where they're basically showing you ahead of time, very subtly, that not every Imperial is kind of like a piece of dog shit. And he probably is. He's probably executed, hundreds of thousands of people somewhere else.
Well, he's
but
also
in this
an engineer.
moment, in
he's
this
not
setting,
a troop. He's not a trooper. He's not.
that's a good point. They mentioned that too. They did.
Yeah.
They mentioned that earlier. You're right. But even still, you think that when you hit a certain level within a command structure of an organization, military or otherwise, you're probably about the party line. That's kind of the point of getting the seat at the big dog table is you're expected to keep some of the big rules and appearances. That way, if alcohol is banned and you get caught with the bottle, they look the other way kind of thing. Some 1984 shit, keep the big party rules, break the small rules about, fucking around with the proletariat kind of thing. But I thought that was an interesting beat, and I just captured it here for the, just wanted to talk about that real quick. So they're proceeding along. This is where the pacing of the episode is right about to pick up and get onto like go time, because the guys are outside. The Andor team, I call them the Andor team, but it's really Tamron's team, but it's Andor's show. We know that.
Yeah.
So they're still waiting at attention at their checkpoint or their observation point or whichever, and they're starting to call over to Vel on the radio to be like, where are we on time? Like, are we a go? Are we a go? We're waiting. We get more of the Imperials are kind of getting into position to go see the eye. Mm-hmm. Vel and Cinta aren't quite in position yet. They're on the dam. They're trying to get up to like a breaker-ish, what turns out to be like a breaker-ish area, or like a hot point in the power, if I'm not wrong.
I think it's also
before they get up there,
the comm relay area.
Right, because they're eventually gonna get up there and jam it.
Yep.
But before they make the top, though, we do get one more scene of J-Hold kind of just inspecting forces at the bottom. It looks like he sniffs a rat also because he stops in front of the Andor party. But they're all Tamron's got them at like rigid attention, like they're not giving anything away. The Aldani are in the background, like looking like, dude, can we move this shit along like it's a fucking holy event here? Could we make with the getting out of the way kind of thing?
And this is the leadership moment for Val, where she's called to make the call. It's either we're go or no go, and she's hesitating. Like she got called out by, what's her name again? Cinta.
Cinta's the girlfriend, yeah.
Yep. Called out like you're just delaying, because he's like, are you sure they're secure, the ropes and everything? And she's like, you're just delaying. And then they start radioing her, and you can see the fear. Like she knows that if I say go,
oh dude, 100% she sells that. But I think actually this time you skipped over a little bit because they haven't done their Mission Impossible dive yet.
Yo, that is such a cool shot too.
All right, so hold on, let me roll that back. So the gentlemen have their moment at the bottom where it looks like J-Hold might have smelt a rat, but he acquiesces due to the pressure building around. He's like, all right, fucking, let's get the ceremony over with. You do all the talking, and we'll get out of here and we'll get on our way. We get back up topside on the dam, and Cinta and Vel, they've shed the gear. They're up there. Oh, that's actually the exchanging of the gift comes here. That's pretty funny with the fur. I was just rolling it back a little bit. So this is where it actually starts to get intense. Tamron's team's calling in. He's like, Echo 1 to Valley 1. Are we a go? Vel in this moment is absolutely selling me on the I don't know what to do. I'm inexperienced kind of thing.
Yep.
She's got to rely on like the not only just like the support from her like her life partner or her wife, whatever they call it in universe here, but like also just somebody else on the team who's like, dude, if we don't do this now, like we're all gonna die.
Yeah, this
like
is
if we pull this off, we might die. If we don't do something now, we are going to die. Like, because they're on the inside. Like, they're on the inside of perimeter at this point.
Yeah, if she called it off, her and Cinta were in the most danger, because the other guys, they could easily just walk away and disappear.
They could fade out, right? Yeah. Dude, the two girls, they're inside the base in a zone they're probably never been. They obviously have been. They've never been seen in. They don't have the Imperial gear. They don't have costume changes that they can run with at this point. Mm-hmm. So no, they're boned if they don't pull that off. So, anyways, what comes of that, and this is the part that King Z was just talking about. That's like a pretty dope shot. Is they basically cinch a couple like winching devices, rappelling gear. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it, what the technical term would be, but they basically clip them up to like the railing, and they kind of go right over the side, dude. And it's basically like they get their Tom Cruise on, dude. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, once she gets the nerve to say we are go over the radio.
Oh, dude, she's locked in.
And then it was like, let's go. And then they did that shot where they jumped over full Australian rappel, which where you go face first. And then it didn't see where they stopped, but it showed them get really close to the ground before they pulled the line.
I think we can assume, that they pulled it like at the absolute last possible second, and that there's an access point somewhere close by that they had pre-scoped out. So after the girls had their badass moment there, it's the guys are following Gorn away from the shrine. The gift-giving bullshit is over. This is the part where the old dude basically holds up the staff and then throws the fur on the fire.
Yeah.
Like, he's got no use for these clowns at all. I think his people kind of cheer behind him when he does it. So they are really leaning into like, oh, dude, there's going to be some shit going on.
They're
right
not
here.
appeased
Like, it's
as
a
they
music,
believe
it's
they
a
are.
holiday. Yeah. We're not only are we not as appeased, like we've picked like a religious day where maybe we're kind of obligated to do some fighting, and maybe you guys don't know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they slip right out of that. This is the part where Gorn sends like the last sentry down, who's basically saying, go watch the eye with your guys. We'll take it from here. The Commandant's already walking in with them with more armed security, Andor's team. So for all he knows, he's good to go. That the extra sentry. So from here on out, this is kind of like the tipping point of the show. Like, the bullshit's over. They had, so I guess we were wrong in the pre-show. It's been about 15 minutes of show to arrive at this point. It wasn't as quick as I thought, but there was interesting stuff going on with the actual breach of the base, with the girls doing the dive in. There was interesting stuff with the custom of the exchange of the furs. We got to meet a couple of Imperial characters and had their personalities set up because they both have implications later. So it was a good use of 15 minutes. And anybody that's criticizing that kind of stuff as as too slow of a burn, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, not everything is a car chase or King Kong smashing a building down.
Yeah.
I mean, there is connective tissue that needs to be here to create an effective narrative.
And you're also talking about a great 15 minutes. Not once did they cut to anybody else's timeline that was not on that planet. It was
100%.
all
Good point,
focused
dude.
right there on that. We didn't
Great
cut
point.
over to the ISB. We didn't cut over to Mom Mothma. We didn't cut over to Rail. It was everything on this planet, and they made sure that
Dude, that's
this
a really
is the
good
focus.
point, my man. Yep. Dude, good point. No flashbacks. Andor didn't randomly think of his sister, in this moment, because he was around, a tribal appearing people that had, like shepherds kind of gear on and staffs and things like that. So, they didn't waste any time with that.
Nope.
There was no, I feel like the exposition was kind of on point. It was minimal. It developed character. We didn't get a 15-page treatise on what the eye was, or how long the religion had been practicing, or what the name of the tribe was. Like, we visually were told what we needed to know, and I thought it was really effective.
Yeah, and when I was taught screenwriting by someone who's wrote multiple scripts and stuff for TV, is that each dialogue scene needs to push the plot along. You don't need unnecessary filler.
Yep, 100%.
And they nailed that technical aspect to this perfectly.
I think that's the kind of stuff too that I think that I was mentioned just before a minute ago. Is that's the stuff that gets a bad rap with certain elements of like modern viewing audiences. It's almost like they'd rather hear things that sound kind of like, not what's the word I'm looking for? That people would rather hear slang that they recognize. That way they think they relate to it more. And like, oh, I talk like that. And, but no, if you keep things snappy and punchy and you actually move the story along, the payoff for you emotionally as the viewer is greater than, contemporary talk and things like that. That's why I always find that, especially in things like Star Wars and Game of Thrones, like or bad shows like Rings of Power, when you use like common vernacular from like, the 2020, it pisses ice water all over any kind of dramatic fire and tension you were building. So here they keep that to a dead-on minimal.
Yeah.
And I just kind of appreciate that on the craft level, like you were saying. So without any, hey guys, King Z realized that this ran way long for a single episode, so we're actually going to cut this in half and come at you guys with a two-parter. So that was the end of Andor episode 6, The Eye. We're calling it, part 1. Stick around, go grab a drink, come back, do what you got to do. We'll come right back at you with the second half of Andor, episode 6, The Eye.